Sometimes the universe has a way of bringing us exactly what we need, when we need it most. For 52-year-old high school English teacher Margaret Thompson in Sacramento, California, that moment came on a Tuesday morning in September when she looked down at her class roster and saw a name that stopped her heart cold. What she discovered next would change everything she thought she knew about fate, family, and second chances. Margaret Thompson had built what most would call a perfect life. At 52, she was the head of the English department at Lincoln High School in Sacramento's prestigious East Side, where she'd taught for nearly 2 decades. Her colleagues respected her, her students adored her, and her husband David, a successful architect, had just designed their dream home in the Fab 40s neighborhood. But there was one chapter of Margaret's life that remained carefully closed, locked away like a book she'd never allowed herself to reopen. 30 years ago, when she was just 22 and fresh out of UC Davis, she'd made the hardest decision of her young life. Pregnant, unmarried, and facing a future that felt impossible to navigate alone, she'd placed her daughter for adoption through a closed agency in San Francisco. The last time Margaret saw her baby girl was through the nursery window at UCSF Medical Center. The adoptive parents had seemed perfect, a loving couple from Marin County who promised to give her daughter everything Margaret couldn't provide at the time. Margaret was reviewing her new semester rosters when she saw it. Emma Catherine Roberts, enrolled in her AP English Literature class. Something about the name sent a chill down her spine. The birth date listed made her hands tremble. September 15th. The same day her daughter was born 30 years ago. That night, Margaret couldn't sleep. She found herself digging through the file cabinet in her home office, searching for documents she'd kept hidden for 3 decades. The adoption papers confirmed her worst fear and greatest hope. Her daughter's original name had been Emma Catherine Thompson before the adoption was finalized. The next morning, Margaret arrived at school an hour early. When the first bell rang and students filed into her classroom, she watched the doorway with bated breath. Then she saw her, a young woman with Margaret's green eyes and her grandmother's delicate features, carrying herself with a confidence that Margaret recognized as her own. Margaret knew she had to be careful. Professional boundaries were sacred, and she couldn't simply approach a student claiming to be her birth mother. But over the following weeks, she found herself paying closer attention to Emma's essays, looking for clues about her life and family. Emma wrote beautifully about identity and belonging, themes that made Margaret's heart ache. In one particularly powerful piece about nature versus nurture, Emma mentioned being adopted and wondering about her first mother, a term that brought tears to Margaret's eyes. The breakthrough came during parent-teacher conferences in October. Margaret's heart nearly stopped when she saw the name on her appointment list, Catherine and Michael Roberts. When the couple walked into her classroom, Catherine immediately reminded Margaret of the woman she'd met briefly 30 years ago at the adoption agency. Margaret spent weeks researching ethical ways to approach the situation. She contacted the adoption agency, now closed, and learned that California had recently passed laws allowing birth parents and adoptees to access original birth certificates. She also discovered 23andMe and other DNA services that could provide confirmation. After much deliberation, Margaret decided to submit her DNA to several databases, hoping that if Emma had done the same, they might match. She also prepared a carefully worded letter just in case the opportunity arose to make contact through proper channels. Margaret rehearsed what she might say hundreds of times. How do you tell someone you're the mother who gave them away? How do you explain that not a day had passed without thinking of them? The call came on a rainy November afternoon. 23andMe had found a parent-child DNA match. Margaret's hands shook as she logged into her account and saw Emma Catherine Roberts listed as her daughter. That same week, Emma approached Margaret after class, looking nervous and excited. "Mrs. Thompson," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I got some unexpected results from a DNA test. I think you might be my birth mother." Margaret's carefully prepared words disappeared. Instead, she simply opened her arms and Emma stepped into them. I've been waiting 30 years for this moment, Margaret whispered. I've thought about you every single day. Through tears, Emma revealed that she'd always hoped to find her birth mother, and that being in Margaret's class had felt familiar in a way she couldn't explain. Your voice, she said. When you read poetry aloud, it felt like home. Margaret and Emma worked with school administration to transfer Emma to another teacher's class, maintaining professional boundaries while exploring their personal relationship. The Roberts family, far from being threatened, welcomed Margaret into their extended family. Today, Margaret has gained not just a daughter, but a son-in-law and 2 beautiful grandchildren. Emma, now a graduate student at Stanford studying education, says finding Margaret helped her understand her love of literature and teaching. Some people say it was just coincidence, Margaret reflects, but I believe that love finds a way. Emma was always meant to be in my life. First as my daughter, then as my student, and now as my friend. Have you ever experienced a moment when the universe seemed to orchestrate the impossible? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe. We share stories of hope, family, and second chances every week. Next time, we'll hear about a woman who discovered her husband's 20-year secret through their daughter's wedding planning. Until then, remember that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives are still waiting to be written.